Okay, Mom, I'm gonna show you how to do the first mitered square of a mitered blanket using two colors. So I'm gonna start on the outside with my white, do a slip knot onto my needle, and I'm gonna do a long tail cast on for the number of stitches the pattern says. So it's under, over. The pattern says 49 stitches. All right, that's 49. Then I'm going to just simply knit across the first row. So knit straight across all these stitches. Now this is a two-color mitered square. So on the next row, you can see I've got my first row of garter purl bumps right there. On the next row, I'm going to simply start knitting with a second color. So I'm just going to put my yarn together here, start to knit, but I'm going to use my new color and knit with my new color. And after a couple of stitches, it'll be on the needle and I can drop what I'm holding and it's just going to dangle there. Those are just going to dangle here in the back. I'm not going to tie them. I'm not going to do anything with them. I'm just going to let them hang. Now as I'm getting close to the center, I need to find the center stitch because I'm going to do a central double decrease. So let me get one of my stitch markers. I'm going to use a locking stitch marker, which is one of these ones that looks like a little safety pin, because I'm going to hook it on the stitch. I don't want to have it on my needles because this stitch is going to move as I decrease. So I've got 15 stitches here, and the center stitch is going to be the 25th stitch. So 20, 25 is going to be this stitch. So I'm just going to put a marker right like that. Now, when I'm one stitch before this marker, I'm going to stop. If you don't want to use a marker, you can just count, but I find it easier to have a marker there. So now I'm one stitch before this marker. If you want to take the marker out for the next part, you can. It doesn't matter if it wants to hang out there or not. You're going to move your needle into two stitches like you're going to knit them, but you're not. You're going to just let them slip right onto that needle, on your right hand needle. Then you're going to knit the next stitch, ignoring those two. So now you've got one knit stitch and these two slipped stitches. Then you're going to pick up these two stitches together and drop them over that stitch you just knit. So this is a central double decrease, and what it does is it moves those two stitches on top, so you have 3 stitches together, 2 stitches decreased, and it's forward facing, so you can see this middle stitch is sitting up straight on it. Can you see that? See how that middle stitch is sitting up straight on it? So it's just a very nice central double decrease. Then you're going to go ahead and knit to the end of the row. So now we've got 3 rows in, if you include the cast on as a row. And now on the back, what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to knit all the way across. I'm not going to do any decreases, I'm not going to do anything like that. It's just going to be knit across. That stitch gets a little squirrely. Okay, I'm going to pull this tight. Not too tight, but just so it looks like a regular stitch. Now, turn it back to the front. You can see that we've got these first 2 rows, if you count the cast on as a row, and then you've got the second 2 rows, creating these nice little garter ridges of color. You can see I've still got my central stitch marked. If you want to move it up into the new row, you can, just so that you know where you need to stop. So you can see that this is the stitch marked. This is the one I'm going to stop at. Now, because this is 2-color miter square, I'm going to pick up the previous color, the first color I used. I'm going to bring it over the top of the old color, and then I'm going to knit to 1 stitch before this central double decrease. 1 stitch before that central stitch. You see I'm 1 stitch before my marker. You see my markers marking this stitch right there in the middle, and this is 1 stitch before. So now I'm going to do my central double decrease again, and I'm going to do that by putting my needle to the left of the second stitch, like I'm going to knit the 2 of them together, but I'm not going to knit them. I'm just going to let them slip off onto the right hand needle. I'm going to knit the next stitch, ignoring those first 2. So now I have the 2 slip stitches, the stitch I just knit. I'm going to take those 2 stitches by putting my left needle in them, lifting them up, and over that knit stitch. So now you can see it forms that nice central double decrease. I'm going to knit to the end of the row. Now it's going to be a good idea when I get to the end of my rows to count the number of stitches on each side of that central stitch and make sure I have the same number on each side. And the reason for that is if you miss a stitch, you'll notice it before you get too far along. Now I'm going to pick it up and knit straight across the back. You'll notice as you go on, your yarn might get a little twisted behind you. I like to take time to untwist my balls. Now you can see I'm back at the beginning of my rows on the front side. You can see I have my first garter ridge, my second garter ridge, and this is going to be my third garter ridge. I'm going to take the time right now to move my stitch marker up a little and mark the new middle stitch of this row. Okay, so I have that marked. So I know I need to knit to one stitch before that with the second color. So I'm going to take that second color from right below where it is, move it in front of the previous yarn, and just knit across with it, stopping one stitch before my central marker. Okay, one stitch before that central marker. So I'm going to do my central double decrease again by going to the left side of 2 stitches, moving my needle in like I'm going to knit the 2 of them together. I'm going to let them slide off my needles. There you go. Knit the next stitch, and then I'm going to pick those 2 stitches back up and drop them over that central stitch. Stitch to the end. I'm going to turn it around and knit straight across the back. All right, you can see I've got my first garter bump, my second garter bump, my third garter bump, and this is going to be my fourth. So I'm going to continue to do this all the way to the tip top when I have only a few stitches left, and then I'll show you how to finish the square. All right, Mom, I'm back. I've got 5 stitches left. I've got my middle stitch marked. I'm going to show you how to finish this square up, and you can see that it does form a nice square. So I'm going to knit the first stitch. I'm going to do my center double decrease stitch. I'm going to knit another stitch. I've got 3 left. Following the same pattern, I'm going to knit straight across the back. Now, following pattern, I would switch colors here because the next stitch should be the other color, but I'm not going to actually see much of that, so there's no real point in changing color. So I'm just going to keep using the same color to do, without knitting anything, to do another central double decrease on these last 3 stitches. So I'm going to do these last 3 stitches, the central double decrease, and then I can go ahead and cut the color I will not be using on the next square. So you'll look at what colors you'll use on the next square, and the next square for me is actually going to be white and yellow. Not this cream color, but a yellow. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the cream, pull it through here, and finish up the square. That's all there is to it. I'll show you how to pick up for the next square in the next video. Good luck, Mom.